did you know that Gordon Lightfoot started performing at the age of 12? And his first instrument to play was the piano. But before we dive into that, let's first make sure that we've subscribed to Brian African channel, and we shall be learning a lot. We're starting another new episode of having a conversation and discussing more about different artists. And our artist today is Gordon Lightfoot, one of the greatest artists from Canada, and he was born on 17th November 1938 in Ontario, Canada. And if you could imagine or think of any greatest artist who was doing folk music and telling stories in his music, Gordon Lightfoot will be on the top list. He was one of the greatest. In my view, I think that was one of the biggest artists then. Even up to date, we still take him as one of the greatest story or folk storyteller in music. And he was singing much about his life, and I mean the true stories. And if you read or listen to much of his music are inspired by the real life stories. And Lightfoot talent was recognized early by his mom before he started performing, because his performance started at least at the age of 12, and he began becoming among the popular artists then. So he continued nurturing him to being the Gordon we know up to date. So there are a lot of things that Gordon did, but before we get into much things, make sure you've subscribed to Brian African channel, as I've said earlier, and we shall keep going. And if there's anywhere you feel like you need to add up something on what I'm discussing, just feel free, and we shall have a good conversation. So let's keep going. Gordon Lightfoot music career started growing in the early 60s, when he started by coming up with the songs like for Loving Me and Early Morning Rain. And I think, in my view, Early Morning Rain is one of the hits that made me and know him before I came into the other songs that came in later. But Early Morning Rain was another big jam. So he continued doing those songs opened up a musical journey for him, and he continued becoming popular in Canada. And he grew up as he went to diverse in other states or countries. He later on went for studies in Los Angeles, where he went to study orchestration. That is just the composition of the jazz. After 2 years, he came back to Canada, and he wrote a song called If You Could Read My Mind. I think that is one of the greatest that a lot of you know about. And another song like Sundown, Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Those are the hit songs that really made him the iconic folk or country music singer. And starting by the first song that I've mentioned, the third song that I've mentioned, If You Could Read My Mind. That song was inspired by the relationship that Gordon was in. I mean, the first wife he was married to, and the name of the lady was called Britta. So Britta realized that Gordon was being in another affair or relationship with other ladies. So she asked him for the divorce. Then they divorced. That really made Gordon to think much about the relationship. Then he came out with the song If You Could Read My Mind. And the lyrics were altered, because he said that he was singing directly to the lady. But now the daughter convinced him that to alter part of the song, so that it doesn't go directly to the particular person he was singing to. he, and in an interview he said that it is sometimes it becomes difficult to alter the the lyrics of a particular song because he's expressing his views concerning that particular thing. So they changed the part of the song, and he sang the song after the alteration. So that song came in, and it became one of the biggest jam in the 70s. Then he was now in a relationship with a lady called Kathy Smith. And if for those who know Kathy Smith a lot, Kathy Smith was a backup in the band of Gordon Lightfoot, and was also later on became a drug dealer after being part of the band. And what made that lady lose some of the, let me say, I don't like to say interest, but what made him make him his interest come down was when he injected John Belushi an overdose of cocaine and heroin. That was when John Belushi was an actor, so they met in an event with John Belushi, and then later on John Belushi called Kathy Smith, and he went there as a peddler and injected him with an overdose. So he ended up dying. She was in prison for some month, and then later on she was released. But after that, Gordon felt like he was not really feeling like he should continue that relationship. Then the relationship ended between the lady called Kathy Smith and Gordon. Then the inspiration then from that the second relationship, now remember the first relationship we came up with the If You Could Read My Mind. Now the second relationship, the song that came down was Sundown. Sundown was inspired by the second volatile, the relationship that was not good between him and the lady Kathy Smith, the lady who made the first relationship to end. Now inspired the second song called Sundown, and then Sundown also became another big jam. Again, made him great artist. So later on, he continued as singing and becoming big artist. There was another song called Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Now this song, he was just reading a newspaper, then he read about the ship that drowned with the 29 crewmen. So he came up, then he stayed for some time, and then he came up with the song from that was inspired after the death of the 29, or the sinking of the ship, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. So that song came in after the sinking of the ship. Now let's come into his personal life talking about his relationship. So with his first wife, who was Britta, they had 2 children. Then he also had another 2 children from outside marriage. He had 2 children, and then later on he married the Elizabeth Moon, that is the second wife, whom they had 2 children with. So the total number of children that Gordon had was 6 children. We have the first children whom they had with Britta. Yes, I'm right. Fred and Ingrid. Then we have Gaileen and Eric. Those were the children that he got from outside marriage or other relationships. Then later on we had Meredith Moon and Miles Lightfoot. So those ones are the children of Elizabeth Moon, who was the second wife. And then the third wife, who came in later on, in the late, I mean is late around the 2014, there in December, where he married the third wife, whose name was Kim Hess, and they stayed with him for remaining period of time. So this is one of the greatest artists I think I've ever heard of in the country music. So thanks for watching. Subscribe. I think we'll be having more of this conversation, and if you feel like there's a part that you need to add up something, as I said earlier, make sure you've done so. And it's a free channel where we can have conversation, have discussion. Who next do you want me to make my analysis on? So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Let's make this channel grow as we grow together.